Hello and welcome to the HIV RNA Test Guide podcast, your trusted source for HIV testing across the United States. Today we're taking a deep dive into a topic that might seem geographically distant, but is incredibly relevant to our understanding of HIV prevention: vaccine trials in Africa.
It's fascinating how interconnected global health really is. While we focus on testing access here in the US, the search for an HIV vaccine is happening on a global scale, and Africa is a key player in that story.
Okay, let's unpack why Africa is so central to this.
Yeah.
We know that the continent bears a disproportionate burden of the HIV epidemic. What's the scope of the issue there?
The statistics are sobering. Africa accounts for nearly 67% of global HIV cases, with countries like South Africa, Nigeria, and Kenya facing particularly high infection rates. And it's not just about scientific progress. Access to prevention and treatment is uneven, and stigma remains a massive barrier.
That stigma really underscores the human side of this epidemic, doesn't it? It's not just about the virus itself, but how it affects individuals and communities.
Absolutely. And that's something to keep in mind as we delve into the history of HIV vaccine research in Africa. We're talking about a journey that started back in the late 1990s, a time when optimism for an HIV vaccine was high.
It was a time of great scientific advancement, but as we know, the path to an HIV vaccine hasn't been straightforward. Were there any early trials in Africa that stand out, either for their successes or their failures?
One trial that's worth examining is the VaxGen trial, conducted in Thailand in the early 2000s. While it didn't take place in Africa, its outcome had significant implications for research on the continent. The trial tested a vaccine candidate called AIDSvax, but unfortunately it failed to provide significant protection against HIV.
So even early on, researchers encountered setbacks. I imagine that was a blow to the scientific community, but what lessons did they take away from trials like this?
The VaxGen trial highlighted the complexity of HIV and the challenges in designing an effective vaccine. It underscored the need for a deeper understanding of the virus's immune evasion mechanisms and the importance of focusing on different vaccine approaches. It really shifted the thinking in the field.
It sounds like a turning point, a moment where researchers realized the need to reevaluate their strategies.
Exactly. It led to a more collaborative approach with increased involvement from organizations like the WHO, UNAIDS, and African research institutes. This paved the way for a new generation of vaccine trials in Africa, designed with a greater understanding of the virus and the unique challenges of the region.
So even amidst the setbacks, there was a growing recognition of the importance of including African researchers and institutions in this global effort.
Absolutely. And that brings us to a more recent trial that garnered a lot of attention. The Johnson & Johnson HIV vaccine trial, known as Imbokodo, which was conducted in several southern African countries.
This one felt like it was making headlines for a while. What made the Imbokodo trial particularly significant?
It was one of the largest and most advanced HIV vaccine trials conducted in Africa, enrolling over 5,400 women. The trial used a mosaic adenovirus vector approach, essentially combining genetic material from different HIV subtypes to create a broader immune response.
That sounds incredibly complex. Were they able to achieve the kind of protection they were hoping for?
Unfortunately, the Imbokodo trial ultimately didn't meet its primary endpoints for preventing HIV acquisition. However, it wasn't a complete failure. Scientists were able to gather valuable data about the immune responses generated by the vaccine and identify areas for further research.
So even though it didn't fully succeed, it provided crucial insights that could pave the way for future vaccine development. Are there any specific takeaways from Imbokodo that stand out to you?
One key takeaway is that the mosaic approach, while promising, needs further refinement. The trial also highlighted the importance of understanding the specific HIV subtypes circulating in different regions and tailoring vaccines accordingly. It's a step closer to a future vaccine, even if it wasn't the breakthrough many had hoped for.
It makes you realize how much work and dedication goes into this research. It's a constant process of learning and adapting, building on both successes and setbacks. And speaking of new approaches, there's been a lot of buzz about the potential of mRNA technology for HIV vaccines. Is that something being explored in Africa as well?
Absolutely. The success of mRNA vaccines for COVID-19 has sparked immense interest in applying this technology to other infectious diseases, including HIV. And there are already promising early-stage studies underway.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. Could you explain how mRNA technology actually works and why it holds so much promise for HIV vaccine development?
Sure. Instead of using a weakened or inactivated virus like traditional vaccines, mRNA vaccines deliver genetic instructions to our cells, teaching them to produce a specific viral protein. In the case of HIV, this protein would trigger an immune response, potentially protecting against infection.
So it's almost like training our bodies to fight the virus before it even encounters it.
That's a great way to put it. And what's particularly exciting about mRNA technology is its versatility and speed. Scientists can modify the genetic instructions relatively quickly to target different HIV strains or to address emerging mutations.
That adaptability seems crucial given how quickly HIV can evolve.
Exactly. And another advantage is that mRNA vaccines can be manufactured more rapidly than traditional vaccines, which could be a game changer in terms of global access and distribution, especially in regions like Africa with limited resources.
This all sounds incredibly promising, but I imagine there are still hurdles to overcome before we see a widely available mRNA HIV vaccine.
Of course. One challenge is ensuring the long-term durability of the immune response generated by mRNA vaccines. Scientists are still working on ways to improve their longevity. Another hurdle is the need for specialized cold chain infrastructure to store and transport mRNA vaccines, which can be challenging in certain regions.
So it's not just about developing the vaccine itself, but also ensuring that it can be delivered effectively and reach the people who need it most. It highlights the complexity of the issue, doesn't it?
It absolutely does,
Mhm.
and that's why it's so important to have a global perspective on HIV vaccine development. The progress being made in Africa, the lessons learned from trials like Mpokodo, the exploration of new technologies like mRNA, all of these efforts are interconnected and contribute to the global fight against HIV.
It's a reminder that even though our focus is on testing access here in the United States, we're all part of a larger effort to prevent and ultimately eradicate this virus.
Exactly. The scientific community is constantly learning, adapting, and pushing the boundaries of what's possible. And who knows, maybe one day soon, an HIV vaccine will become a reality, thanks in part to the incredible work being done in Africa.
It's an inspiring thought. Now, while we wait for that breakthrough, we can't forget about the tools we already have to combat HIV. And speaking of tools, let's shift our focus to a crucial aspect of HIV prevention testing.
You're right. Testing remains our most powerful weapon in the fight against HIV. And in the next part of our deep dive, we'll explore the importance of frequent HIV testing, especially the role of early detection through RAA testing.
Stay tuned, because early detection can make all the difference in managing HIV and preventing its spread. We'll be back after a short break.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Before the break, we were discussing the promising advancements in HIV vaccine research, but stressed the ongoing importance of testing as a crucial tool in HIV prevention.
Exactly. Even with all the progress in vaccine development, regular testing remains absolutely vital in controlling the spread of HIV, both in Africa and here in the U.S.
And this is where the HIV RNA test comes into play. It's a game changer in terms of early detection.
I'm really curious about this. We talk a lot about antibody tests on this podcast, but RNA tests seem to be gaining traction. Can you explain how they work and why they're so important for early detection?
Sure, unlike antibody tests, which detect the antibodies our body produces in response to HIV RNA tests, directly detect the genetic material of the virus itself, the RNA. This allows for much earlier detection of HIV, sometimes within days of infection.
Wow, that's a huge difference compared to traditional antibody tests, which can take weeks or even months to become positive. What impact does this earlier detection have on treatment and prevention?
Early detection through RNA testing has several significant implications. First, it allows individuals to start antiretroviral therapy sooner. The earlier someone starts treatment, the better their chances of suppressing the virus and maintaining a healthy immune system.
So RNA testing not only helps individuals manage their own health, but also plays a critical role in preventing onward transmission of the virus.
Absolutely. When someone living with HIV achieves an undetectable viral load through treatment, they become effectively non-infectious, meaning they can't transmit the virus to others. RNA testing helps ensure people know their status and can access treatment promptly, significantly reducing the risk of transmission.
That's a powerful message about the impact of early detection and treatment. It really highlights the importance of removing barriers to testing and ensuring that everyone has access to these critical tools.
I completely agree. And this brings us to a crucial point. While RNA testing is readily available in the US, access is much more limited in many parts of Africa. This disparity in access to testing technologies has significant consequences for controlling the epidemic globally.
It sounds like we're talking about a two-pronged approach. Advancing vaccine development for the future, while simultaneously strengthening existing prevention strategies like testing in the present.
Exactly. And that means addressing the inequities in access to testing and treatment that exist both within and between countries.
Here in the U.S., we have organizations like yours working tirelessly to make HIV testing accessible and affordable. But what can we do to support efforts to improve testing access in regions like Africa, where the need is so great?
There are several ways to get involved. Supporting organizations working on the ground in Africa to provide testing and treatment services is crucial. Advocating for increased global health funding to strengthen healthcare systems in resource-limited settings is also essential.
It's about recognizing our interconnectedness, isn't it? The fight against HIV is a global one, and progress in one part of the world ultimately benefits us all.
That's a powerful way to put it. And it brings us back to the importance of staying informed. By understanding the global landscape of HIV, the challenges and the progress being made, we can all contribute to a future where this virus is no longer a threat.
And that's precisely why we created this podcast. We believe that knowledge is power, and by providing accurate, accessible information about HIV testing, we can empower individuals to take control of their health and contribute to ending this epidemic.
And for our listeners here in the U.S., remember that confidential HIV testing is readily available. You can find testing locations near you by visiting our website, hibernatusguide.com. We also provide detailed information about different testing options, including RNA testing, to help you make informed decisions about your health.
We're committed to making sure everyone has the information and resources they need to protect themselves and their loved ones. Now, as we approach the final part of our deep dive, we want to shift gears and talk about the individuals who are on the front lines of the fight against HIV in Africa.
These are the researchers, healthcare workers, and community activists who are working tirelessly to provide care conduct, groundbreaking research, and advocate for change. Their stories are incredibly inspiring and offer a glimpse into the human side of this global epidemic.
Stay tuned as we delve into their personal stories and the remarkable work they're doing to make a difference in the lives of countless individuals across the continent. Welcome back to the HIV RNA Test Guide podcast. In the previous parts of this deep dive, we've explored the science, the challenges, and the innovations in HIV vaccine research, all while emphasizing the critical role of testing in the fight against HIV, especially here in the U.S. Now, I'm eager to delve into the human side of this story to hear about the individuals who are making a tangible impact on the ground in Africa.
It's easy to get caught up in the statistics and the global narratives, but it's crucial to remember that behind every data point, every research breakthrough, there are dedicated individuals working tirelessly to make a difference.
Exactly. And their stories often reveal a level of resilience and ingenuity that's truly inspiring. Can you introduce us to some of these individuals and the work they're doing?
Absolutely. One person who immediately comes to mind is Dr. Glenda Gray, a South African physician and researcher who's been a leading figure in HIV prevention and treatment for over 3 decades. She's the president and CEO of the South African Medical Research Council and has been instrumental in conducting large-scale HIV vaccine trials and implementing groundbreaking prevention programs.
Her leadership in the field is truly remarkable. What specifically stands out about Dr. Gray's approach to HIV research and prevention?
Dr. Gray is a strong advocate for community-based research, recognizing the importance of involving the communities most affected by HIV in the design and implementation of prevention strategies. She understands that a one-size-fits-all approach won't work, and that tailoring interventions to specific cultural contexts is crucial for success.
That community-centered approach seems essential, especially when we consider the historical mistrust and cultural sensitivities surrounding medical interventions in some parts of Africa.
You're absolutely right. And Dr. Gray's work exemplifies how building trust and fostering partnerships with local communities can lead to more effective and sustainable solutions.
It's not just about developing a vaccine or a treatment in a lab. It's about ensuring that it reaches the people who need it most and that it's accepted and integrated into their lives.
Precisely. And beyond Dr. Gray, there are countless healthcare workers, nurses, and community health educators across Africa who are working tirelessly on the front lines, providing care, education, and support to people living with HIV.
They're the unsung heroes of this epidemic, often working in challenging conditions with limited resources. Can you share any stories about the impact they're having in their communities?
I remember reading about a nurse in rural Uganda who travels miles on her motorbike each day to deliver antiretroviral medications to patients who can't easily access clinics. She also provides counseling and support, helping people navigate the stigma and challenges of living with HIV.
It's incredible to think about the dedication and compassion these individuals embody. They're truly making a difference in the lives of countless people.
And their work extends beyond direct patient care. There are community activists and advocates across Africa who are raising awareness, challenging discriminatory policies, and pushing for increased funding for HIV prevention and treatment.
They're giving a voice to those who are often marginalized and ensuring that the needs of people living with HIV are heard and addressed.
Exactly. Their advocacy work is essential for creating a more supportive and inclusive environment for people living with HIV, reducing stigma, and ensuring access to the care and resources they deserve.
It's clear that the fight against HIV in Africa is a multifaceted effort driven by scientists, healthcare workers, community leaders, and activists, all working together towards a common goal.
Absolutely. And while the challenges are immense, the progress that's been made is undeniable. Life expectancy for people living with HIV in Africa has increased dramatically thanks to the availability of antiretroviral therapy. New prevention methods like pre-exposure prophylaxis, PrEP, are becoming more widely available, and the research towards a vaccine continues to advance.
It's a testament to the power of human resilience, collaboration, and innovation. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to thank you for sharing your expertise with us today and for all the work you do to promote HIV testing and prevention.
It's been my pleasure, and I want to echo your thanks to our listeners for joining us on this journey. It's been an important conversation, and I hope it's inspired you to learn more about HIV and to get involved in the fight against this global epidemic.
And for our listeners in the U.S., remember that knowing your HIV status is crucial. Regular testing is the cornerstone of prevention, and early detection through RNA testing allows for timely intervention and can significantly reduce the risk of transmission. If you're looking for more information about HIV testing, including RNA testing, visit our website, hibernatesguide.com. We have a wealth of resources available to help you stay informed and make empowered decisions about your health. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on the HIV RNA Test Guide podcast.